Live weekday mornings from 6 to 10 and on demand in the Rocker app. It's the best of the Rocker Morning Show on 107.7 RKR.
Tim, you're on with Meatball and Mark. Hey, Meatball and Mark, how are you?
Great, Tim. How are you doing?
Great, man.
Doing very well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Man, it is an honor to talk with you on the phone, man.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, likewise.
Knowing your comedic roles from the past, we watched the trailer for the show, and this was not what we thought something the name of Virgin River was going to be about, especially with the guy who played Otter from Animal House. So it still looks very good.
That's a good show. You know, it's totally different. I mean, the only similarity between Eric Stratton, Otter, who I played in Animal House, and Doc Mullins in Virgin River is they're both doctors. You know,
right.
Stratton, Otter became a gynecologist in Beverly Hills, and Vernon Mullins is a small town doctor, runs a clinic, and but that's the only similarities. And yeah, and it's not as comedic certainly as Animal House or
True.
Or risque, perhaps.
Sure.
You know?
Now, Tim, I have one question for you. Me being a guy who went through a fraternity, and I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't ask you this. As somebody who went through a fraternity in college, like, what does it feel like being Otter? Like, you are one of those icons for all frat boys everywhere across the country. They look up to you and your antics. Like, how does that feel?
Well, it's spectacular because I was anything but that guy when I was in college, you know. I mean, when I graduated from high school, I was like 5'7", and I looked like I was about 13. And I remember a girl that I just, like one of the hottest girls in school, I would always make her laugh, and she said, I'd go out with you if you were 6 feet tall. And it was like, I had no control over that. You know? I mean, it's like, hey. But so when I got to play Eric Stratton, it was my dream come true. I got to be everything that I had wanted to be, and it was written that way too. He was, and by all rights, he should have been an Omega and not a Delta. He should have been
right.
The snooty fraternity because he was cool, but he just was. That's the other thing I loved about it was that anybody could get into our fraternity. It wasn't like a country club where you got to vote people out. It was just like, no, you want to be in here? Come on in.
Right.
We accepted all, any and all were welcome in the Delta.
People probably know you best, initially as playing Otter from National Lampoon's Animal House. You also played Vice President John Hoynes in The West Wing. That brought you 2 Primetime Emmy Award nominations, which is outstanding. Really, your career just spans a number of movies. I mean, comedic, serious, everything. You were in, King of Queens, Cold House, Van Wilder, 1940. The list is insane, man. And now you're doing this show, Virgin River, that I got to tell you is it's really a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's become a Netflix fan favorite because we premiered, I guess, during COVID, and it was a kind of in the midst of all the chaos in our lives around the world. It was a place where people like to go to and feel more comfortable, and they gained comfort from the show, and it was a nice place to be. And it was also about people who'd had traumas or troubles or hard luck in their life who'd gone to this little idyllic community up in Humboldt County, Northern California, a fictional town, and tried to get their life together, and they meet people, fall in love, and my character, Doc Vernon Mullins, is a guy who was a successful executive doctor at a Seattle hospital who decided to get back to treating patients one-on-one and getting to deal with patients again. And so he's moved to this small town, and it's choosing quality of life over career, I think. That's sort of what the show was for me anyway, for my character.
And that's what's kind of unique about it, too, is that it was brought in, like you said, during the pandemic. And there's quite a few parallels. And I feel like that's what drew people into the show as well. And to expand on that, too, is what do you find like really unique about the show that you feel like is going to be good for people who are new to it?
Well, it's about different generations. I'm, one of the older generations in the show. Annette O'Toole and I are a couple that was once married. Vernon had cheated on her and betrayed her. They separated, and never got divorced, but they've been apart for 15, 20 years. And now he's always been trying to redeem himself and get back together with her. So there's that conflict for me, which is like, you know, and anybody who's ever done something stupid in their life, and I think we can all sort of own up to that at one time or another.
Nah.
Right. Nah, you guys.
No, definitely.
It's just a chance to redeem yourself. That's what sort of Virgin River's about.
So specifically with you, you know, you've had an incredible career with the number of people that you've worked with, just an insane wide variety of actors and actresses. Two of the people that Mark and I were both curious about, you got to work with both John Belushi and Chris Farley. And, you know, we were curious about, you know, being able to work with two of these legends, you know, individually in your career. You know, what was it like being in the room with them? What was your relationship with them in those times?
You know, the one thing I think they both had in common, because Animal House was my first comedy, and you know, it was back in the day when there was always a big competition between New York actors, LA actors.
Right.
New York actors were over theater, you know, and LA actors, you're just pretty boys. You just get by, and you know, books, and you're not really an actor. You don't study and all that stuff. And Belushi never was that way. And it was my first comedy, and I was like very nervous. And he was very gracious and supportive and caring and giving as a friend. And then it became a good friend of his. And Farley was the same way. You know, I mean, Chris Farley he lived to perform. So that between takes, if we had a couple of big crowd scenes, so there'd be a couple of 200-300 background artists, you know, as an audience I was running for governor, so it was like a big crowd that I was in a rally. He would entertain them between takes. He would do a striptease. He would, you know, dance and tell them jokes. I mean, so he couldn't not be funny. He was just always giving. He had this tremendous urge to entertain, and it was such a shame that, you know, he died so young and
Sure.
You know, was caught up in drugs, darn heroin, you know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man. Well, I got to say, especially as a lover of film, it's so hard to find two actors, especially actors that aren't used to working with each other or haven't had experience, to really get the chemistry. And I think that's why Black Sheep has always been one of my favorite comedy films, because the chemistry between you and Chris really is spot on. It really, to me, felt like you two were brothers in this film. You guys did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. He was such a fan of Animal House, and he just adored the work. He adored my character, and he acted like my younger brother. And I remember we were changing costumes and doing pictures of us when we were younger, playing football and this and that. And it just gave us a chance to talk about his youth and my youth, and
that's great,
and develop this kind of rapport. And it was always fun to work with. I mean, he would never do a scene in the same way twice, and he was always very supportive of what I was doing, and was never acted like a big star, even though he was.
Yeah.
And he's a very loving and caring guy.
Awesome. Thanks for that, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for hanging out with us today, man. And Virgin River, streaming July 20th on Netflix. Cannot wait for the new season, and we appreciate you taking some time out for us.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Meatball.
Thank you. We appreciate you greatly, dude.
All right. Thanks, Tim.
This is the best of the Rocker Morning Show with Meatball and Mark.